right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Otsego City Council meeting. Audra, can you have the record show that all council members are present this evening, along with our city administrator? Our assistant city administrator is absent this evening. The present is our attorney, our city engineer, and our city planner. At that time, we will invite all you all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our first item this evening during our open forum is a special presentation from the Wright County Sheriff's Department. All council members, you should have your activity reports on the dais here, and we will welcome the Wright County Sheriff's Department to present their yearly information to us.
Mayor, City Council, City staff, appreciate you having us up tonight. As you know, every year we try and present an annual budget in partnership with the Sheriff's Department and the cities that we represent. Sergeant Oltmans is here, obviously plays a key role for us in the Sheriff's Office's representation, so it's good to see. I'll just go over some of the highlights of the annual report. I'd always do caution that statistics are statistics, so they try and give us that ruler that we go by. No statistic is perfect, and that's kind of my forte. I love stats, but on page one, not page one, it's like the third page, just looking at the history of the contracting. So Otsego was at 84.20 for, or excuse me, 81.75 for 2021 and 84.20. So it was a 3% raise, with Sheriff Derringer, when we spoke with the city last year, initially because of cost of vehicles had gone up 5%. So he vowed to try and keep it at 3% this year. And then we did have a workshop where we talked about ongoing hours. So we're always in partnership with trying to look at what's best to serve the citizens of the city. Going to the next page, that we called these years ago the quality of life calls. So the things that seem to disrupt the citizens' lives the most. The number one call on that is suspicious activity. The call that when it comes in that we can't code it as anything, but it's kind of our partnership. That call always reflects that citizens calling in and telling us something's up in their neighborhood. And we like to see that call actually be our highest every year, because that confirms to us that we still have a good communication with the citizens and that they are calling us. The next one is civil. So you don't really think of that as something that's alarming. And then medical. So in Otsego, when you look at our top calls, they're not burglaries, they're not murders, they're not robberies. And so we're very good with that. These are calls that happen in everyday life. You guys have a very high populated community. So to have a lot of medical is not concerning. We're glad that we could be of service to them. Traffic calls. We have a lot of deputies that like to work traffic. I was just talking to one of our deputies on the parking lot before I came in. Not a new deputy, but definitely a lot younger than I am. And recommitting to that idea that traffic isn't just to write traffic. We're not trying to interrupt people's lives. It's about education. It's to prevent people from having crashes. So we always want to remind our citizens, we are not out there to ticket people to collect money. There's no revenue for us in that sense. It is about education and distracted driving, DUIs, and unseatbelted people are what kill our citizens every year. So that we are trying to truly remind people. So to see that volume of traffic stops, I believe for the three biggest cities, I believe Otsego had the highest volume of traffic stops last year. Otsego crime incidents. Once again, this is the way of the world. Theft and fraud is our number two or 1 and 2 calls. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that are dishonest and try and take advantage of people. In the crime comparison, you can see that over the last few years, and I think this kind of correlates a little bit with the number of hours that we put into the city, but you can see that assaults have gone down, burglaries have gone down, court order violations have gone up, which in today's world with COVID and everything else, we have a lot more order protections and dankos and domestics. People are at home. Some are abusing alcohol more than they should. And through all that, you have the perfect recipe for more court orders and things of that nature. Criminal damage to property is down. Drugs, unfortunately, sometimes will go up. And then fraud, of course. But everything else looked pretty good over the last 4 or 5 years. We like to see the stability of it. Special investigations, that's our unit that does specifically narcotics, but they also assist us in many other things. 6 calls for service in 2021, so that's a fairly good number, and those are probably, I know for a fact, those are isolated to a few addresses. So the major crimes unit, so one of our guys who's in that actually lives in the city. He lives not too far from here. He is one of our main people involved in this. They are the assist. They do the technical stuff, processing a crime scene. So one of the other services that we provide to the city, we work directly with our own lab instead of sending things to the BCA. So very nice commitment or partnership to have there. Cases assigned to investigation, once again, theft is the number one thing. Not alarming numbers at all for the city of Otsego. I didn't tally up all of the cases together, but it's a pretty low volume number. And then school resource officers, obviously, you know, if you compare it to last year because of the absence with COVID kids, it went up. So don't be alarmed by that. Kids are back in school last year, so those numbers will be higher. And then finally, your city comparison, which is, I think, something that you guys would like to look at when you look at your geography, your population. You want to compare yourselves to Otsego, Monticello, St. Michael. We could throw in Elk River, Rogers. I tried to get that for you guys last year, but to get Buffalo, Elk River, to compile the same stats we have, they're kind of doing their own thing, and I'll work on it again for next year, but those numbers aren't always readily available. And when we are switching to a new system in a couple of years, so uniform crime reporting will be more stabilized and we should be able to do better comparisons. But comparing within our own system, you can see that for either geography or population, for the most part, you guys are, I would say, better numbers if we want to look at things of that nature. Not ripping on the other cities by any means, but is there any questions on that specifically on that sheet? That's one I usually get the most questions on.
Jeff?
Mayor,
Yes.
we go back to that search warrant.
Yes.
When you deal with search warrant, I know the big thing now is no knock and all that fun. You deal with a search warrant, are you going to the door with the search warrant, say I need to search, or a search warrant? Is it car, is it person, is it house? What is that?
It's
Or multiple
usually,
instances?
I'm sorry to cut you off.
Sorry.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Continue.
Oh, excuse me. The two instances you had, was that car, person, or house?
So we do more search warrants that are related to Otsego than just that's on there, because if it's on a person, those are usually blood draws down at the hospital.
Okay.
So they could be related to an Otsego incident. So this is specifically to properties associated within the city limits of Otsego. But we do a lot more on citizens because of the DUI laws related to drugs and alcohol. But specifically to Otsego, those were on property. Now they may include the person of and the vehicle of, or it might just be but typically when Jason, Sergeant Oldmans and I did it, it was, you usually had a known investigation with known subjects. So it would be for the persons of the vehicles that we knew that were associated, either those persons or the address, and then the address. The big topic in today's world is no-knock search warrants. We just met with some representatives the other day at our office, and I believe Wright County last year did 2 no-knock search warrants. And it's a whole bigger subject. So we started when I was in narcotics in 2008. We did what now is law. We have to do an assessment at the threshold to determine, even though the judge granted that search warrant, if it's still necessary. If we see a kid in the driveway or in the house, we don't do that no knock anymore. It changes the game. So I know it's a big topic. We're working with the legislators on making sure that we're doing things right, how we document it and what we do. So we try to avoid that at all costs.
And you guys are safe, you and your crew or whoever executes those warrants.
Yes.
Great.
So a little history on that. I got sick of in the day going in and trying to get a little bit of dope and risking one of my guys' lives over that. And then the citizens. So we stopped doing that. We found safer ways to do it if we could at all possible. It's a necessity, unfortunately, sometimes that we have to do it.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Tom?
Madam Mayor, when we're looking at the 2021 city comparison,
Mhm.
Otsego contracts for 48 hours, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Monticello contracts for
52.
52
hours.
52, and April contracts
32 hours.
30. When you look at the contracted hours and the number of calls that you guys have to go to. You were saying Otsego has kind of less of an incident rate or more of an incident?
So it's interesting you bring that up. It's one of the things I go by because call volume doesn't necessarily mean anything unless you actually look at contracted rate.
Mhm.
Otsego, January this year to February, about a week ago, had the lowest of the four cities, Albertville, St. Michael, and Otsego, or Monticello, excuse me, had the lowest calls for service rate with the highest traffic stop rate per contracted hour.
Okay.
So that's what we're looking for, right? Because the stats can be
Yeah,
skewed.
because if we had 72 hours, we'd have a lot more
Ex-
traffic stops.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. That's why I said we don't want the stats to fool anybody. It's population. We expect the calls to be higher, but you have the lowest call for service rate with the highest traffic stop rate. Of
So
those
some
four
good
cities.
officers out there educating people on how to drive safely.
That's what we're hoping for.
Okay.
Any questions on the city comparisons?
Any other questions?
There was only another one page, if I may,
Yeah.
that I wanted to talk about, and that was the Otsego calls for service, time of day, and calls per week. We obviously try to partnership up with you, your staff, to work with when is the best hours. So we're always adjusting that. What we consistently see is about what you see on that. Our peak volume is, that anytime from 10 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night, and then people start to settle in. Unfortunately, it's the calls for the day of the week. And I get questioned this often is why don't we have more cops on this day versus this day? I was looking at our 2020 stats from last year, and for 2021, Friday was the busiest day. That's what everybody thinks is pretty traditional. But you look at from year to year and it varies. Just a couple of years ago, Wednesday was the busiest day of the week for whatever reason. So we are a 24-hour shop. We staff every day of the week. We never want to try and run you guys short. But months are what matter. So at Otsego right now, we put more hours into the city per day than is contracted. So we try and pull that out during the winter months when it's slower. And actually we're trying to staff it more in the summer when we know it picks up. So if you see one less officer 4 hours throughout the day, it's because I am now trying to build up those hours for the summer so we can get you guys a little bit more coverage where we really need it during those summer hours.
And it's because your shifts are different now.
Correct. They're
Than
10-hour shifts.
They're
Yeah.
10-hour shifts.
Yep. Are there any other questions? Yes, sir.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Tom.
just one more. And how's the attrition with Wright County Sheriff's Department? Right? And how's the ability to hire and train new officers?
We appreciate the question on that. So we've been pretty blessed over the last year or two. We've acquired officers from the metro that have been looking to escape that atmosphere and come to something a little bit more what Wright County has to offer. Unfortunately, everything has its cycle, and we're starting to see a little bit less of that because those people are more in demand, so they're getting a little better offers to stay. And we're starting to hit some of those. We have these gaps where we hired in batches, and those batches are starting to hit their end of life. So we have retirements coming up. So to replace those people that are retiring, and the schools do not have the attendees that they used to have. So our office is very well aware of that problem. We have a recruitment team that's going to schools. And I'm even saying to our officers that are out there now, it starts before kids even make that choice. It's about having a positive interaction with a child at 10, 11, and 12, so that they see that and get back to the days of, I want to be that, because right now it doesn't really exist. So we're working with the community to try and get back to that, but it's going to be problematic for us. We're going to be in all hands on deck mode if we continue at the rate we are. And we're better than a lot of agencies are right now for retention.
Well, I appreciate you guys showing up to like Santa Day and
Yeah.
Pumpkin Patch Day, and
They love it.
Easter.
And making those connections.
yeah.
How many how many officers are retiring in the coming year?
We are looking at rough numbers, anywhere from 8 to 10 officers retiring.
That's a
Yeah.
lot. Okay.
Seems like a lot.
Yeah.
It is. We're going to be busy with training. And with that is growing pains, the officers that are learning, making their mistakes, and people are making mistakes. So there's hopefully not egregious. So
When you guys are hiring, how long then does it take from them to be hired to then out in the community working in a city? for
Good,
example?
good question. That's one of the major problems that we face. So from the time that we post and test and do our process to the time that they're field trained is about 6 months.
Hmm.
So it's quite the process. So it's not an easy, it's not, this is a report and this is how you do it and we'll work. So we take pride in that our people come out as trained as they can be, but we know that there's still a learning curve while they're on the road. And in Wright County, we assign specifically a sergeant to them. They are assigned to teams, like Sergeant Oltmans has his team of people that he works with, plus everybody else that's on staff. So, but it's quite the process.
Well, all of the officers that are staffed here in Otsego, nothing but quality. So thank you for
Good to
always
hear.
having great people in our community serving our residents. So
Well, thank you for everything you guys do.
yes,
You're here.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Have a good week.
All right, we are still under the open forum section of the meeting. Does anyone have anything in the audience? You can either come to the podium, state your name and address, and limit comments to 5 minutes or less. And anyone also on Zoom is able to speak during open forum. Right. Audra, one question. It seems like we're not hearing it ourselves. I mean, we can hear him, but it looked like they were kind of leaning like they couldn't hear. So I don't know if the volume's turned up on our mics. Are you guys able to hear well back there? Okay. It just usually we can kind of hear ourselves a little bit and it seems really quiet up here tonight.
I think they were working on the equipment, so.
Oh,
maybe something
okay.
got adjusted.
All right, perfect. All right, we will move on to item 2 to consider our agenda for approval. Does anyone have anything that they would like to add or delete at this time?
Madam Mayor, I just have a question.
Yes.
I'm gonna put it here. You tell me if I need to put it elsewhere, but
Sure.
due to me not being here last week, or not last week, on the 24th, excuse me, at our meeting, I just wanted to ask the question if, in regards to the COVID policy, if, I know Jeff wasn't at the last meeting, so if you had a chance to speak with him, I don't know if it was at the council meeting that you spoke with him in regards to whether he had any questions in regards to that at all. So that's my first question, if that was privy to him and if he had any comments.
I would move that under, let's move it to city council reports and updates.
Okay.
And you can ask Jeff. I didn't speak with Jeff.
Okay.
And he would have read his packet.
Okay.
So,
We'll move that on.
Mayor,
yes.
just a clarification. What would we be putting under city council reports and updates?
So you're looking for clarification on it or?
Just put COVID policy.
COVID policy. Madam Mayor,
Yes, Tom?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended, including item 6.1 COVID policy.
Is there a second?
Oh, second.
All right. Motion by Tom, seconded by Jeff. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next item is our consent agenda. A motion would be in order.
Mayor.
Yes, Jeff.
I'd like to motion to approve consent agenda as written.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, seconded by Tom. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to item 4.1 is Quick Trip. I'll turn this over to Dan.
Thank you, Mayor. Quick Trip Incorporated has submitted application for development of a new motor fuel station and convenience store at the northwest corner of Parish Avenue, County Road 42 and 87th Street within the kind of main commercial corridor of the city. The applications are subject to review based on the criteria established by the zoning ordinance. The comprehensive plan guides this site for commercial land uses based on it being within the core area of the city's commercial land use designation included as part of the comprehensive plan. There are policies that talk about the need to evaluate applications from an individual basis within the context of the area as well as the city as a whole. The goal of the city in developing its land use plan is to avoid an over intensification of any one particular type of land use within the commercial areas of the city. And the fact that there are existing uses of similar nature in the same area doesn't predicate approval of this application as well. So based on the approval of the Parish Meadows preliminary plat, the property was zoned to B3 General Business District. That allows for the proposed use by conditional use permit. And within the context of this area, there's to be a range of retail service and office businesses that serve both local as well as regional markets. And as highlighted in the planning report and on the screen, there are 2 existing motor fuel facilities in the area located more directly adjacent to the County Road 39 and 42 intersection that provide services in this portion of the community. The area immediately surrounding the property, which faces and is oriented towards County Road 42, looking at the kind of general commercial area, all the commercial uses along County Road 42, and then this site is intended to transition back to residential uses that were also approved as part of the Parish Meadows preliminary plat to the west. So the concern in looking at this site plan from the criteria established by the zoning ordinance is avoiding exposing the residential uses that are going to be under construction to any impacts from noise, air, or light pollution that may exist in relation to the allowed use, the operational conditions of the site plan, or the construction of the building. We outlined as part of our review of the application concerns regarding the site plan, that the orientation is the principal building on the east portion of the site backing up to County Road 42 with the canopy on the west portion of the property, essentially in the yard closer to the residential uses to the west. All that activity is basically going to be kind of not using the building to screen the residential uses, but directing all that activity in that manner. Also, concerns regarding the access to the site with delivery vehicles for both fuel and the store itself needing to use the Parkview Avenue entrance. That would be true of any commercial use of this property based on the access limitations to 87th Street, but the motor fuel use has a particular type of activity in terms of both fuel trucks and service delivery semi trucks that would be accessing the site. Also, based on the site plan, the store delivery vehicles will need to back up to be able to then go south and exit the site via Parkview Avenue as well. We also noted that the preliminary plat approval for Parish Meadows had included additional landscaping along Parkview Avenue to try and buffer the future residential development from any commercial use of this property. The landscape plan provided with the application wasn't quite consistent with that, would need to be upgraded and expanded upon to add additional materials and density if the application were approved. Under the conditional use permit criteria established for motor fuel facilities and car washes, the city has the ability to limit hours with the intent of addressing any potential compatibility uses. The baseline hours established by the zoning ordinance are 5 a.m. to midnight. City staff is recommending those be adhered to for the site. Also that the car wash be limited to 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., which corresponds to Minnesota Pollution Control Agency noise limit hours for nighttime operations. Again, to avoid any compatibility issues with the residential uses to the west. Site plan, obviously with it being a preliminary and final platted lot, it complies with the requirements of the B3 district for lot area and lot width. The setbacks generally comply with the requirements of the zoning ordinance. We did identify some minor issues related to the parking setback along 87th Street. There needs to be 24 feet of separation between the fuel islands. It was slightly less than that at just over 21 feet. And then also the vacuum station that's shown in the southeast corner of the site needs to comply with the 30-foot setback from the public right-of-way so that it's not in that front yard. As outlined on the previous slide, access to the site is not allowed off Parish Avenue, which is under Wright County jurisdiction as a minor arterial roadway. They do have a right in off of 87th Street to bring traffic into the site as soon as possible. In terms of customers, that right in eliminates any traffic that would cross over the 2 drive lanes on 87th Street to either make a left turn or a U-turn at Parkview Avenue that would potentially congest traffic. In terms of off-street parking, there's an adequate supply within the site in terms of the number of stalls required and those provided, plus the obviously parking at the fuel islands that is available while people either go in to prepay or pay at the pump and then go in to shop. The car wash circulation through the site, you travel through the car wash from north to south. So with the perimeter curb on the east and north sides of the site, there's plenty of stacking space back to the front line of the building, then plus all along that north line of the site, provided there isn't a fuel truck there to accommodate car washes on the busiest, warmest days of springtime. Also, in terms of pedestrian circulation, the site has sidewalks and trails on all 3 sides abutting the public streets. They do have 1 pedestrian connection from 87th Street to the interior of the site. And we had suggested adding a pedestrian connection along the north line of the site, basically between Parkview Avenue and Parish Avenue, so that people approaching from the north can also access the site from those directions as well. The zoning ordinance establishes parameters for outdoor sales and service that the site would be conditioned upon complying with. That falls into that location for the vacuum service area that needs to be adjusted. Landscaping as shown on the plan, other than the issue along Parkview Avenue in consistency with the preliminary plat, complies with the requirements of the zoning ordinance. It's well laid out. The number of plants is good. We did suggest adding some additional plants along Parish Avenue where there's the gap along the stormwater basin, but the sizes and quantities are generally appropriate. Exterior lighting plan that was submitted complies with the requirements of the zoning ordinance. There is also a waste storage area on the north side of the building that's accessible for service vehicles. And then city engineers review for stormwater and utilities is included in your packet. And Mr. Wagner can address any comments with regards to that. The building plans are typical of Quick Trip location, high quality brick, stucco and glass used for the entirety of the exterior finish, along with the green metal roof. The canopy fascia is consistent with the fascia used on the building. We did recommend including brick columns as part of the structure to comply with the requirement that the principal building and accessory structures match. The height of the building at 1 story is within the 4 stories allowed within the B3 district. The zoning ordinance includes specific standards for the canopy. It can't be over 18 feet in height and also has to have 14 feet of clearance, obviously, for vehicles underneath it. This canopy complies with those requirements. The developer also provided a plan for signage for the site in terms of proposed wall signs and the 1 freestanding sign at the southeast corner of the property at the intersection of Parish Avenue and 87th Street. The area and height of that freestanding sign, as well as the setback from the public right-of-way, comply with the zoning ordinance. In terms of the wall signs, we did note that the zoning ordinance intends to allow freestanding, wall signs on those elevations facing public streets. And that sign's allowed on the canopy to be in lieu of the wall signs on the building. So we did recommend removing the signs from the canopy structure. That would also get to the issue of potential compatibility with the surrounding residential uses. The city has allowed 3-sided signs in the past, so the 1 sign on the north elevation could remain as well, consistent with other past approvals. So city staff had outlined considerations for both the planning commission and city council with respect to the application pertaining to consistency with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. We're concerned about the compatibility of the proposed development with surrounding uses in terms of the site plan and potential noise impacts. And to that end, would recommend limitation on the hours of operations. And there are some issues that need to be addressed with compliance with the zoning ordinance, either as conditions of approval or as a basis for denial of the application. So the Planning Commission held a public hearing at their meeting on February 7th. Mr. Dean George of Quick Trip was present as the applicant and explained the reasoning for the development of the site plan as it's been presented, which did follow numerous discussions with city staff regarding our concerns, but as is the developer's right, they wish to proceed with the application that they presented. The planning commission discussed those issues at length. There were also no public comments, but as far as the planning commission discussion goes, a number of the planning commission members were comfortable with the proposed use as well as the site plan. So after the public hearing was closed, the planning commission recommended approval by a 3-2 vote. They removed 2 conditions that city staff had recommended related to changes to the site plan to address the orientation of the building, as well as eliminating the backing maneuvers that were required for delivery vehicles. So what we presented as part of the request for council action this evening is motions as well as findings of fact consistent with city staff's original recommendation for 13 conditions. You also have the option to amend those findings and conditions to be consistent with that recommended by the planning commission. If the council chooses, you can also elect to table the application and direct city staff to prepare findings to deny the application, which would have to come back to your meeting on February 28th. And then if there's the need for further discussion or additional information from the applicant, you can always take that action as well by tabling.
Thank you. Does the applicant wish to comment?
Good evening. I guess I don't need to comment other than to say my name is Dean George and thank you for hearing our application. Thank you for Dan for the wonderful presentation. Again, I think the biggest thing that we talked through, and I know a lot of you guys might have been present or listening in on the planning commission meeting, was we talked through the orientation of the building. And I think the important thing to note is kind of the set location of the 2 access points are really the driver on having us flip it in backwards. Our standard model is to present our fueling island and our store towards the access points, which is why you see it oriented in that direction. That's why it's like that. The delivery vehicles, one thing you guys might know kind of who we are at Quick Trip because we have one in town. It does a great job up there on 101. One thing about kind of the way we run our business is we're generally regarded as the most vertically integrated convenience store chain in the country. So what that does is we have everything run out of our central shipping and distribution area in La Crosse. So when we ship to our stores, you'll get one semi-load in there. It's not like you're going to get the Frito-Lay's guy and the Red Bull guy and then the Old Dutch guy coming in. Everything goes through La Crosse, and then we get a Quick Trip truck in there a day. So there's not going to be 4 or 5 deliveries a day. It'll be 1 Quick Trip vehicle per day. And I think Councilmember Darkenwald had asked me to follow up on the level of fuel we expect to be sold to get a kind of a rough estimate of how many times we can expect fuel drop there a week. And engineering says anywhere between 2 and 4, depending on the season. Sometimes it could be 4 times a week in the middle of summer driving season. Could be as little as 2 kind of in the middle of dead of winter.
And what are the hours of those deliveries?
So we don't know when those will occur because we haven't set the route schedule yet after the new store has been opened. But my general feeling is it's going to be during business hours. So if the store is restricted to not being open between the hours of midnight and 5, it won't occur at probably even before 5. And I can be available for questions if you guys need. I'll just be back here.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Council questions or comments?
Yeah.
Jeff.
Tom, when you're in that, you're at that meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay, I missed listening. Did you agree with those 2 pieces that were removed? When the council voted to remove those 2, they says, well, the city staff voted for 13, but planning only wanted 11. Did you agree with those 2?
Oh, you're talking about when they were 1A and 1B? And I think that's what we need
Well, that's what we
to
need to
discuss here
so.
tonight. I
Yes.
don't think it would be appropriate for me to sit there and have a conclusion on that right now.
I guess I'll start. I listened in on the planning commission also. I struggle with this store and I get your reasonings for having the fuel islands at the entrance points. But to me, this is, as much as we don't have a traditional downtown, this becomes really our main street or downtown. And having it face to the back, which was some concerns that were brought up, it seems odd to me. And also, it is our job to make sure that it's compatible with what's going to be across the street from this, which is all those townhomes and single family homes right next to that. It kind of directs all that noise that way. And also it seems as though you're driving past it and it's the backside of it. So I struggle a little bit with, just viewing that. And I get your reasons. I listened in on that. And also I will say, since we are able to discuss it, we have, if this one went in, there would be 3 gas stations within 6 blocks of each other. And, we always keep saying like, what's our goal and bringing in business? And I'm not disregarding that we don't need gas stations, because the question was asked, where else could it go? Quick Trip is a fine company, frequent it regularly. I just personally have a hard time with this location going in right there as a gas station. That's what I'll say. Tom?
Madam Mayor, yes, a question for the applicant, Dean. You go by Dean or
Yep,
Mr.
Dean's fine.
or,
Yeah,
or
no,
Mr.
Dean is
Jo-
fine.
or
Mr.
Mr. George?
No, Dean is perfect.
Did you guys look at positioning the store, facing the other way?
We
at
did.
all? Yeah,
There's just no circulation on site if you flip it the other direction.
Yeah, and that's what you said that
Yep.
evening.
but
And I think the way we get comfortable flipping it in backwards is the back of our building looks kind of the same as the sides of the building and the front of the building. We do 4-sided architecture, so the whole building kind of looks the same and it looks nice. So it's not like you're seeing just the butt end of the building. So there's going to be the car wash back there that might probably have a gable on the back, and it's probably going to look pretty aesthetically pleasing from the road.
So, I mean, obviously it would be a reasonable request to sit there and see both sides, one west facing and one east facing. But what you're saying is doing the east facing, which is the opposite of this, it just wouldn't work
Correct.
on this site.
Correct.
Have you also looked at other sites?
In Otsego,
Mhm.
no, this has kind of been the one that we were pointed to. So we've kind of looked, as I look at the whole area as you are expanding, I think there probably could be some other things in the works. But this is kind of the one that we stumbled onto, at least up front right now.
When you look at, what is it? Trying to understand the blue and the red line on,
For the backing?
So
Yeah.
I screwed that up with planning commission. My apologies.
1204.
It seemed like we were, listening in on.
2.1.
So red is coming into the site.
Yep.
So blue is coming out of the site and green is reversing. So the red is both tanker and grocery delivery. Tanker delivery can circulate right out back in front of the fuel canopy in the blue and not need to go in reverse. The grocery delivery is going to have to go in and out in green and then back to blue, if that makes sense.
Well, when you.
Did I get it right this
Kind
time?
of makes sense, but when I follow the blue lines, it looks like they all almost like flow together, and the red lines, it looks like they kind of all flow together. So it looks like on the red, it's coming in, and then it's also leaving.
Yep. So it's coming, everything kind of stops right there where you see that kind of hash checked area.
Yeah.
Because that's where the tanker drop is. So that's where fuel is going to get unloaded underground into our storage tanks. And then it'll pull immediately out into the blue line.
So it just takes a right in front of the
Yeah.
store?
Yep. Yep.
So a large tanker.
Once a day. Twice a week.
Mayor, it's gonna come up to the tankers and then immediately just turn right.
Yep,
and exit.
yep.
So it's the store delivery that has to back up to the green to then follow the same path as the tanker.
Correct.
I would agree. I was listening in and I was like, where's everybody
I
going?
completely misrepresented what was happening in that diagram during the planning commission. meeting.
Okay. I was like,
I was trying to
everybody's
follow.
I am
backing up.
sorry, everybody.
They're gonna be on the street. We're gonna be running people over. Altman's is gonna be there all the time, dealing with incident reports. I can keep talking, but that was my comment to start out with.
Okay. Didn't know if you had more or something.
Well,
Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay. And I too was also on the planning commission meeting, so I was able to hear and see this as well too. And I've got a couple of things here, and first and foremost is the location. As soon as I heard about Quick Trip, and I don't get me wrong, I love Quick Trip. I think you guys do a fabulous job with your buildings and just very professional looking, and love the inside and what you offer. Really do. you're one of a kind. But I feel that because we have Holiday, Colburn's, we put Quick Trip here and then we just have Quick Trip right up the road. I just feel like we have so many gas stations, 2 with car washes. And this would be a third one. I don't know if I don't like the look of the backing of, you're looking at the back of Quick Trip off of 42. So the design of it, not so much. I don't think that's the right spot. I think there's a place for it in Otsego, definitely, but I just don't think, to me, that is the right spot.
And-
Makes any sense?
It does.
And that's where I was going for too.
Yeah.
Madam
plenty of
Mayor,
property.
I would sit there and say, I think we all agree that Quick Trip is
No
a great
problems with them as an
and a
organization.
Great store.
It is
and everything. So
beautiful.
don't get that wrong. Is this one is larger than the current one that we have?
It is. To the untrained eye, you might not be able to tell, but there will be some expanded retail and kitchen space inside. And it will have a little bit of a different interior look.
That's what you had mentioned.
Yeah.
There's more kitchen space.
And the one that that's currently off of 39
38.
and 101, 38,
Yeah.
37, 38. 38 and 101, that's how many square feet?
7,200, I
And
want to
this
say.
one is going to be
9,000, 9,100.
Okay. About 2,000. Does it have the same amount of islands?
It does, but no diesel on this one.
No
So there's no
diesel.
separate
No
canopy
diesel.
for diesel
Right.
fuel here.
There's a place for electric cars.
So we've had that debate kind of internally in the office, and everyone kind of struggles.
I'm
When
just
when do
wondering
we
where
start
it's kinda
putting them
going.
in?
Well, right.
So we don't have an answer for that quite yet. But I think eventually we'll probably have to start taking out, fuel areas and putting in electrical stations whenever the technology gets so you can charge your car at a gas station at,
Just wondering
5,
if
6,
I'm
8
gonna have
minutes.
to switch as we start getting to $4 or $5 gallon of gas. So
I think as you see more and more EV on the road, it's probably become more commonplace to see a place to plug those in.
Mhm.
But everyone's kind of scrambling to figure out, when that time comes. When do you do it? How do you do it?
I have another question, and you might have the answer, Dean, right off the bat, or maybe it's a Ron Dan question, but if I'm pulling in there with a truck and a boat, so logically I would be just pulling straight in because hopefully there's a spot for me. But that maneuver of, if I have to worry that there's a delivery truck, I'm either pulling way forward into where their parking is, or I have to do the loop, and be facing west then, correct? What is the space between the end of the islands parking and like that storefront right there?
but yeah, even the parking right there.
Well, and I
'Cause if
bring
there's
this
cars
up,
there,
I bring
yeah.
that up because
Holiday,
there are
it's tough.
holiday, no one brings their
Yes.
boat there
Yep.
because of the way that their parking is
Yes.
orientated. There is no ability,
No.
if you have a truck with a boat on it, to pull into Holiday gas station, to pull your truck forward, to gas up your boat, and to safely get it out.
So between the curb when you come off the right end to the first fuel pump is I got 56.3 feet.
Kind of show with your mouse. Sorry.
You're saying the first,
So
So-
from
okay.
here to here.
yep, but I'd be fueling my car out or fueling the boat up, let's say. So I'm facing then east. I need to get myself
Yep.
lined up. What's the space if I'm at the end of the pump, so on the east side to where that first spot is? And if there's a car parked there, have I now blocked the entrance as though I'm explaining is what happens at another gas station that we have, which is why people don't go to that one. And so are we creating now the same issue that we're blocking people in? And they can go to your other Quick Trip. Don't get me wrong. They're still going to give you the same money.
I guess I still don't get the question.
So end of the island to the parking on the right. If I'm parked in those cars or I'm the car pulling in with the boat, is there enough space to be pulled forward and to still drive
There's 38 feet there.
from the end of the island to the,
Yep. So there will be enough space.
I just couldn't see where there was ever a marker where it would tell me how far that space was.
Mayor, that's essentially 3 drive lanes wide through there, so.
Okay.
I don't obviously have the measurement for holiday, but that is wider.
This kind of-
Mayor?
Yes,
Yeah, I just checked what the measurement for holiday is, and it's 25. Just from their canopy to the paint line of the parking, so it is significantly less.
Okay.
And that's probably why you're seeing those issues, trying to get
okay. So this
pull
is
forward enough to bring the trailer.
33, you said?
37 and a half.
37 and a half.
So these dimensions, kind of the 55 feet from the curb to the canopy and then the 37 feet between the canopy and the store, those are standard, those are Quick Trip standards.
Yep.
So those are on, 800 stores, 500 stores. There's quite,
Okay.
quite a few who are a lot smaller, but that is the new design standard. at Quick Trip.
You can see why just the question was,
Yep.
are we cramming this in? Another reason, that I had some concerns with just that drive aisle then. If I'm the truck trying to go south through there, which you're telling me that's your movement, plus you have a truck with a boat and then somebody trying to back up, like we created an internal,
I don't believe so.
So, in Madam Mayor,
Mhm.
just going along with that, so if you're pulling in with a trailer or a boat,
Mhm.
something that's anywhere from 15 to 20 feet, and you're pulling in and you're pulling up to one of the pumps, I mean, either your gas tank is on the left or the right. I don't know if that makes a difference when you're pulling up to here, but I would assume so, but how are you pulling in with that trailer on?
I think most
there
people would
enough
probably
room?
have to go onto this park view to then pull in straight.
Or you just kind of go all the way to the far side, my guess is.
I can tell you, we'll probably go to, people usually look for in and out with boats. They don't want to have to backtrack or back up, just. A few of us have larger boats that we go on.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, I'd come on right in and go on the right, I mean, the first one there on the end. But then I'd be afraid to turn,
To turn around,
to-
yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't go in between the pumps. I'd go all the way around, but I'd still be afraid because there's gonna be cars parked by the store. And then depending on how many cars you have at the pump, because I do have a big boat, and so we've been in that scenario, so.
Mhm.
I'm
then
not
they're
surprised, yeah.
So I get a little nervous
Mhm.
because, I mean, we may be cautious, but that doesn't mean that everyone else,
Everyone
that
else,
there's that room, that space on either side, pump side, store side.
Madam Mayor?
Mhm.
And I think one of the things that we're bringing up here is obviously given the Quick Trip that you guys have already put in the holiday that's already in. There have been kind of, when you're looking at the plans, it's one thing as far as trying to understand circulation and how everything's working, but another thing when we're actually going to the holiday and seeing kind of how that circulation
Right.
works.
That's a fast question, because we would never take the boat to Holiday. It's too tight. Any other questions, comments about? Yeah.
Madam Mayor.
Madam
Yes, Brittany.
Cool. I was just, Mayor, just real quick, I was just going to state that at the planning commission, there were five commissioners that did vote, and it was 3-2. In the notes.
Yes. Brittany?
I guess I'm just wondering, Dan, I'm looking back here at the notes and there were a lot of questions as to where else or what other sites could this potentially go? And Dean said that you haven't discussed potentially where else this could go.
Correct.
I think, well, and because I'm piggybacking on that, I think that's probably our internal struggle here, is that we could probably direct you into a lot of great sites that it would be perfect for.
Like, could that be a conversation as to other, where else potentially could this go?
Essentially, the application is for this site, so that's what the council has to respond to. One of the planning commissioners did ask where other potential locations would be, and I rattled off County Road 42 and Highway 101. Especially on the west side of the city where there aren't any gas stations in Otsego, County Road 38 and County Road 19. County Road 137 and MacIver Avenue, which is directly adjacent to the I-94 interchange, would be a prime location. There's also locations at 42 and 101 on the opposite side of the roadway that were considered for motor fuel stations as well. So there are other locations that would have access and visibility suitable for a motor fuel facility, but as I said, this is the request the trip is making tonight.
Sure. I will say, I mean, if you ask anyone, Quick Trip is the best gas station. They have everything that you need. It's a one-stop shop essentially for some. So, and again, your stores are lovely. I think that for me, there's a vision for downtown Otsego, and for me, it's not right there for numerous reasons. But I think exploring other options and other sites would be, I'd be definitely open to doing that.
Other questions, comments?
And I mean, I'll piggyback. I mean, we discussed that. I would totally agree with what Brittany just said. I mean, with just looking at another site, in Otsego, I just, again, don't think that's the right site. I think there are better sites. And I hope that you would consider looking at other sites here in Otsego.
So as Dan said, we have to look at and evaluate this specific application for this specific site. Tom?
Madam Mayor, Dan, there's kind of several motions that the council's able to make here tonight. Could you expand more on the third motion and any specific reasons that we would need to give?
Mayor, so city staff, in order to, for the council to deny the application, city staff has to prepare findings to that effect and outline the reasons for the application being denied. So in planning report, we obviously outlined our concerns about the application, consistency with goals and policies of the comprehensive plan, and compatibility with surrounding land uses as primary issues that the city council should consider. So that is the motion that the council makes. The motion should include statement to that effect.
From each council member or from,
The motion can include.
Madam Mayor,
this Tom?
I'll make a motion to table consideration of the application and direct city staff to prepare findings of fact to deny the request. Based on that it's inconsistent with the cited policies of the comprehensive plan, the criteria established by the zoning ordinance in noncompliance with the performance standards of the zoning ordinance.
I will second that.
Second.
All right. Motion by Tom, seconded by Brittany. Is there any discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Tom?
Dan, would that suffice?
Yes,
Direction?
thank you.
And you will be bringing that
And
back then?
Mayor, that would be brought back to the February 28th meeting for your review and then action.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
I'd also say that's not a knock against Quick Trip.
Mm-mm.
It's
No.
just as far as,
Understood.
the
No, I get it.
location, so.
You guys all made it very clear.
Yeah.
Is there any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Just a question for Dan. So what would the process be going forward? You'd be, talking with Quick Trip between now and the next council meeting? Or table?
Mayor, essentially city staff will draft the findings of fact. They'll be reviewed internally by myself, the city attorney, as well as city administrator. Those would be brought back for the meeting on the 28th. It'll be a regular discussion item. Between now and then, if Quick Trip wanted to make changes to their application, they could certainly do that, or the findings would come forward for your action.
So, as I understand it, you'll be bringing back, reasons, to deny.
Correct.
Another option is they could withdraw the application.
Correct.
Another option is they could redo the application.
Correct.
Everyone clear on that?
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving
Thank you very much.
on to item 4.2 is our zoning ordinance for accessory structures. Dan.
Thank you, Mayor. You'll recall that resident Tanner Voller was at your meeting on January 2nd to raise a potential concern and question regarding allowance of pole buildings within certain zoning districts in the city. Your direction was for the city council or for the planning commission to review that issue. As part of their discussion, we also included discussion regarding location of accessory buildings within the older residential zoning districts that comprise the 1 acre subdivisions, as well as a frequent comment and discussion that we get concerning safeguards for swimming pools. The item regarding location is that the zoning ordinance was amended in 2014 at the recommendation of the planning commission to not allow any detached accessory buildings in front yards, either a garage, shed, any type of structure. It's primarily an aesthetic concern that they're still subject to the same setback requirement that the house is. But having that garage forward kind of minimizes the view of the house and can affect the character of the residential area. What we've found, of course, since then is you have areas of the city that probably developed in the 70s, early 80s, where that was kind of typical to put the house farther back on the lot, have the garage forward of that. So this was brought back to the planning commission again to reconsider whether there should be an exception within those 3 zoning districts to allow that garage to be forward of the house. The planning commission this time around agreed that, looking at just these 3 zoning districts, as long as it's within that envelope of required setbacks, it's really not the city's concern as to whether that's the garage or the house. So they supported that change unanimously, the 5 present. And there was the resident interested in that issue also spoke to his interest in having that as part of looking at constructing a detached accessory building. The second item was Mr. Voller's issue that was brought forward. As it was adopted back in 2002, pole buildings were limited to the A1 and A2 agricultural zoning districts. They were limited to areas outside of the sewer district or the 1 acre area in the northeast corner of the city. And there was also a requirement for a 5 acre minimum lot requirement. Essentially trying to keep those buildings in very rural areas of the city on rural type parcels where that type of construction is more common. In looking at the map of the city where Mr. Voller's home is and where he would like to build, there's approximately 140 parcels that are affected by that 5 acre minimum requirement. Fairly insignificant number when you look at the area involved. It's likely it could increase over time just as some 1 or 2.5 acre subdivisions are done outside the sewer district, but overall it's not going to have a great effect. And these areas are truly rural. Mr. Voller's property is somewhat unique in that it is in a platted subdivision, but as you know, it looks right across the street at a cornfield. So it's not going to affect any neighborhood character by changing this requirement. Again, the planning commission, after hearing from Mr. Voller, concurred with that and recommend changing the zoning ordinance to allow, eliminate that 5 acre requirement. The final issue discussed by the planning commission, and this is one that comes up frequently, the zoning ordinance currently requires a fence or a wall that's at least 4 feet in height to secure outside pools that are below grade. That fence needs to have self-latching gates. And the ordinance doesn't, as city staff has interpreted it, allow for these automatic covers to qualify. The main distinction between the fence and the automatic cover is that the fence is passive. It's always there, it's always in place. With the requirements that we have for the gates, it's intended to always be secure. You would have to actively defeat the gate to, in essence, unsecure the pool. On the other side of it, for the pool covers, yes, you can stand on them. When they're closed, they're highly effective. There are maintenance issues that the planning commission discussed after hearing from a resident. So, they were concerned that, they're not the end all be all solution, but also the fact that the owner has to actively close the pool. And if it's open to breathe the pool or for maintenance issues, the area is not secured. So the planning commission was not interested in amending this section of the zoning ordinance to allow pool covers to meet the safeguard requirement. They did recommend a change to that section that basically specifically states that these covers do not meet the safeguard requirement. That's going to be beneficial, especially for Barb in the building department when dealing with pool permits, explaining that have to put up the fence. There isn't an exception. So as I said, the planning commission conducted this as a public hearing. 3 residents, each interested in the individual topics, had an opportunity to engage with the planning commission and discuss their ideas and comments regarding the zoning ordinance. The planning commission did close the public hearing and voted 5-0 to recommend approval of the ordinance that you have included as part of your packet this evening.
Any questions for the planner on this? Tom?
Madam Mayor, and I agree with kind of what Dan said and the whole passive protection. The fencing that's put into place, especially with kids in neighborhoods, I mean, if you don't have a fence, they're going to be running over to that pool, and that puts a lot of, I think, undue risk and issues that could happen if you don't have a fence in place. So just having a pool cover by itself just didn't make any sense.
And I can say as a pool owner, of course, they're going to tell you it's got all these great standards, but if you have a hole in your liner and you have to pull off that cover so you don't ruin that and keep your pool open all winter. I mean, there's just things that it's just not safe. I also, did catch on, I believe the resident, was talking about his own children. And I guess what I missed kind of commenting on that. This isn't, I mean, yes, we want to keep his children safe, but it's about keeping the neighborhood children from entering the pool.
If you've got a
That's-
4 or 5-year-old that lives next door, they're not sitting.
We're not even
"Oh,
next door, a
okay,
few doors
yeah,
away.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel very strongly and this is something that's easily avoidable. And when the comment about passive versus active, I think that was a good analogy the way you said that, Dan. So I appreciated that. Explain that because I think one of the commission members was questioning he's like, oh, okay, I get it, passive and active. I think other stuff made good sense with the changes with the buildings. You talked about materials and I guess with that, I will make a motion to adopt ordinance 2022-02, amending the zoning ordinance regulating accessory structures and approve publication in summary form.
Second.
Motion by Jessica, seconded by Tina. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying
Aye.
all those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item 4.3 is a public hearing to vacate drainage and utility easements in the Boulder Pass Outlot G.
Thank you, Mayor. MI Homes has submitted a final plat application for their second addition to the Boulder Pass neighborhood. City staff has implemented a new process for considering final plat applications, that the developer has to execute the development agreement before it's brought to city council. That includes the payment of all fees and posting of the securities. That's been done to facilitate it on the administrative end, where the city clerk and city staff are trying to track down documents and signatures in order to get things recorded. So to minimize the amount of chasing that needs to be done, everything needs to be in order before it's presented to council. So this, in terms of this application, created a bit of a timing issue in that the developer wasn't prepared to execute the development agreement at this time. But the request does involve vacation of a drainage and utility easement, needing a public hearing that had to be scheduled in advance. So the request from city staff is to conduct the public hearing for the vacation and then table any action until the final plat is brought forward. Vacation itself involves outlot G, which is the parcel to be final platted into lots, blocks, and public right-of-way for street extension. There were drainage and utility easements recorded with the initial final plat for Boulder Pass across that outlot that are no longer necessary once the new second edition final plat is approved and recorded. The subdivision ordinance will provide for the necessary drainage and utility easements to be dedicated. So the requested vacation is appropriate and normal in the course of moving on with phase development of the site. So city staff would recommend approval when the final plat is presented, but at this time we request that the vacation be tabled until that future date.
I'll go back to item A. Audra, just confirming that all legal notices have been published.
Yes, they have.
Thank you. I will go to question before I open public hearing. Tom?
And Mayor, just a question for Dave. Dave, I recused myself on this original application, given that this is a new application and it's not technically adjacent, but the project's adjacent to property that our family owns. Should I recuse myself?
Councilmember Darkenwald, if you have any potential conflict based on the proximity of your family's property, you can recuse yourself. If something has changed between the last time when you recused yourself and this time, and you feel you no longer have a conflict, then you could potentially vote on it. So ultimately, it's up to you, but if the same factors are in place the last time you recused yourself, then it would indicate you should recuse yourself again. If something has changed, then you could make a different decision.
Damn, that's an attorney.
Yeah.
If you're in doubt, I think you should recuse yourself.
Madam Mayor, I'll recuse myself.
All right. Audra, you have the record show that.
Thanks for clearing that up, Dave.
All right, at this time, I will open the public hearing. Yeah, you can come to the podium, state your name and address. If you're online listening in and you have a comment, you can also take that. So again, we're opening up the public hearing in regards to the drainage and utility easements in Boulder Pass Outlot G. Anyone have any comments? I'll ask again. Any comments? We will close the public hearing and bring it back up to council for our decision.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion.
All right, Tina.
Motion to table a request to vacate drainage and utility easements for Outlot G, Boulder Pass, until a future city council meeting for consideration concurrent with the application for final plat approval of Boulder Pass, second condition.
Second.
Motion by Tina, seconded by Jeff. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Can somebody go get Tom? Maybe he can hear us. Just take a second. Oh, he heard us. Just wait for you to get seated and we'll move on. All right, we'll move on to item 5.1, the Walsh Estates and O'Day Acres Street Renewal Project. I will turn this over to Ron.
Thank you, Mayor. This is our 2022 street renewal project, a feasibility report that we're presenting to the city council for your approval. And then setting a public hearing if you do approve it. So this project is Walsh Estates. We have a aerial photo of it because usually I'm just showing you graphs and drawings and stuff, but there's a photo of Walsh Estates aerial. It's a nice neighborhood. It's an older neighborhood. On the next screen, we have the area, all the streets that are in there. It's quite a few. I think it's about 2.5 miles. So, and again, on the next slide, I think it has the rating, and they're pretty poor. They're 33 and 45, I believe, for the two. All the ones that are in red were put in 1978 and then overlaid in 1999. So even the overlay is 23 years old and is showing some age. And then the other one is O'Day Acres, and I believe that was put in around 1994, 1996 area. So that wasn't part of the overlay project, of course, but as part of this project, you know, it's a small section. It should be redone with this so that everything is pretty similar. And just to the north of this, Heritage Hills. So it all fits nicely, that timing in this area. On the next slide, we've got some photos of how it looks out there today. I don't know if you can see it, but there's quite a few cracks in the pavement. It's really not the poor soils or poor road bed. It's just so old and aged. It's gotten brittle over time and needs to be replaced. I think there's one more set of photos. Yeah, these are the typical sections of the area. Walsh Estates is an older neighborhood. Again, it's got 66-foot right-of-ways, but the road is not a typical section that we put in the street nowadays with our standard plates. And therefore, we're just working with what we have there to make it economical. The street width after the overlay was 20 to 22 feet wide in most places. So we have to replace it with something similar to that. What we are thinking is we don't want to go 22 feet wide all the way to the edge again. It allows the traffic to try to drive on that edge. And when you drive on that edge with the ditch section next to it, that's where it tends to break off. So we're looking at putting a gravel shoulder on that edge to hold the asphalt in and keep the traffic in the center. That does bring the width down to 20 feet, but you know, there's 105 homes or so in there. It's not a lot of traffic, and 20 feet should be sufficient to allow people to get around. In O'Day Acres, that is a newer development, 60 feet right away. It has asphalt curb with it. We are getting rid of asphalt curb throughout the city where we can and when we do these type of projects, just like Heritage Hills. So we're matching a standard plate that the city has, and it's 28 foot for a cul-de-sac and no sidewalk for that type of street. So this matches our current day cul-de-sac standard plate. Again, the road, we're going to be putting back 3.5 inches of asphalt after we reclaim it. And then we'll remove some of that material in order so that it doesn't keep building up. One of the issues when we put the overlay on was that we were building it up only 1.5 inches higher, but in these areas, it does steepen the ditches, and that causes people issues with mowing their ditch. So we'll take that material and we'll use it to do the shouldering and then also haul it to the city, and the city can find uses for it over time. It's good material, it's good gravel material. So the estimate is up from our capital improvement plan, and we all know that the inflation has taken its toll here. So we've got 895,000 estimated in our capital improvement. Of course, we've seen about a 10%. It's even greater than that in the construction side. So we're seeing concrete pipe as much as 50% higher than it was a couple years ago. So it's jumped to 991,000. I think that's just about 11% or something like that is what it comes down to. But that's just where we are with prices. for going into next year here. So again, there's 105 homes in there. When we look at the assessment map, it'll actually show two more that are not included in it. One is City of Otsego owned, and I believe that property was tax forfeiture given back to the city because of an inability to put in a septic system once that first septic system failed. And then the other one, the property actually accesses Odine Avenue. It doesn't use those streets. So we had revised our assessment max amount to $1,092. So that brings you to $114,660 for those 105 units. So a little over 11.5% of the project. And the other 88.4% would be city funded using either the franchise fees or other funds from the city. And this is the assessment map. Everything is bound in the red. So you can see the two lots that are not included. There's also two to the north that also access Odine. So in reality, there's four within these two subdivisions that will not be getting assessed. So we're hoping to hold the public hearing on March 14th. Before that, we'll have our other meeting with the residents, the open house. And we'll try to set a time with that with the council tonight. Then at the next meeting after that, time to put plans together. April 11th, we approve plans and specifications and authorize ad for bids. Have the bid opening May 3rd after a few weeks of advertisement. And then award the bids on hopefully May 9th. Construction can start probably around June 1st. And we're thinking it's about a 2-month project. So, for our assessment 429 process, this has to be a improvement that is necessary, cost effective, and feasible from a technical and engineering standpoint. It has to benefit the properties proposed to be assessed. And this project can be completed as a standalone project. It's a fairly decent sized project. So with that, staff is recommending that you approve the resolution in front of you, receiving the feasibility report for the improvement of the streets within Wallish Estates and O'Day Acres, and then setting that date, March 14th, for the public hearing, will allow us to present the project to the residents and the potential of the assessment costs.
Ron, I have a question. So on the O'Day Acres section, so that road is, you had on here, it was the 29 to 30, we're going down to 28 now, and then we're doing the standard plate of what a cul-de-sac would be. So I take it we're not getting a more concrete, we're just gonna put more black dirt in, their lawn will be just a little, that's where the difference would be, their lawn will just come out a little farther.
Yeah, it's
So
about 6
basically-
inches.
Okay.
So it's hardly noticeable, but it just matches one of our standard plates correctly.
Just know we're gonna get that question from residents when they see that it's gonna be smaller in that section. There's just a few homes back there, obviously. And then the other section, you talked about doing the gravel shoulders. Do we have any properties, and I obviously, once you meet with all of them, but that we know that they are having issues with their ditches? I know there are some lower sections back there kind of.
Yes. So I looked at the aerials
Mhm.
to see if there was any standing water in the ditches, and there is one section that does. The rest of them, I was surprised that they did not. So of course, the project cost is up there, but it does include some work in the ditches. And it does include some slope improvement where there, especially in some corner areas where you are turning a radius, those areas got steeper. So we think we can add some slope to that, so it's not so difficult for the residents to mow, and just add some topsoil in that area and reseed it for them.
Okay, yeah. I just know we were looking with our son, there was a few houses that came for sale back there last spring, and we looked, and there definitely was some that standing water, as you mentioned, that
Yeah, it's
Wasn't
mostly
going anywhere.
towards the back of the
Yes.
development. I call it back, the west side of the development.
Which
The
there's-
problem with really trying to look at a lot of these is then you get into the driveway culverts themselves are then not set correctly. So do you replace those? And then if you're replacing those, that costs money. And then you have to replace, of course, their driveway. So it starts to add up in a hurry if we
Mhm.
start to try to tackle drainage issues instead of the road issue.
Sure.
So I think it's gonna be strategic in how we handle this.
Okay. But we're
Where-
not,
Where we get the best results, where there's the worst issues.
but as the residents, when they come in and meet with you, if they could be on their cost, additional from what the road would be if they needed to fix those culverts at that time.
That would be a way to do it. We could talk to them about other options if they wanted to see improvement.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely see it as the burden goes on to the homeowner on that sense
Yeah.
for those culverts, but just laying it out there if that's
Yeah.
an option or how you guys plan to tackle that, because
I think the other question is, do we use gravel or do we use topsoil for the shoulders? I mean, grass grows for a year or two and then the salt can take its toll on it. If you put in gravel, it has weeds that grow up through it, turns green anyways, but the problem is people driving off the edge. If you pave it, then they drive off the edge and it's a ditch and that breaks the edge off. If you leave the gravel, they can drive off the edge. You can repair the shoulder then if it's gravel. If it's topsoil, and people drive off it, especially after it's just been placed and the grass hasn't established itself, it can become a muddy mess for a while. So we're looking at a gravel edge here just to give it some ability to hold up to the a tire that might go astray.
and then you mentioned too that you are holding the open house for the residents.
Yeah, we were thinking some Thursday between this meeting and the March 14th meeting, so the 10th, 3rd, the 28th were the ones that came to mind.
Sure. And you would just do it like how you did it last time, where it was a sign up genius option to the
Well,
residents?
I was thinking we could just do 30 minutes, maybe present the feasibility report to them as a group, and then have a couple tables and just have people come and talk to us. There's 105 homes, and if we had 105 and everybody had 10 or 15 minutes, and I think that's the COVID requirements have maybe laxed a bit or not as quite as stringent. I don't know what the city's policy is on that. Maybe we could just require masks or something for that meeting. It would just go, I think it would be like a 2-hour meeting if it was held that way, if we did every 15 minutes and we had 50 out of the 100 show up. It'd be 25 for Brent and 25 for me. And that'd be a long day.
Right. And you would need a timekeeper.
Right.
Yeah.
We had a timekeeper last time and it worked pretty well, but we were talking about 30 homes and we each took care of probably 10.
Yeah. And no, I would agree. I think your idea of doing a 30-minute presentation, they can come and then they can ask specifics and you'd have maps like you did last time. You use the screens, I believe. Also, that information can. So would you be doing a mailing to them then, or how are you directly mailing them?
Yeah,
so
we
they
would
know?
do a mailing and have a couple tables with the plans laid out.
I guess I look to you picking the date on that. That's what, when you and Brent are available, that's not something that the council, it's just you working with the residents on that. So that doesn't need to be called on our time. You figure it out, work with Audra, and that all mailed out to everybody. I guess I would just include that your number if they can't make it that evening.
Sure.
just for a way that they can reach out to you.
This way too, I think gives them time to ask questions or think of questions if they have them when they come and sending out the letter in the mail.
All right, does anyone else have any questions on it? Tom?
Madam Mayor, just a couple, when you're looking kind of at Ochoa that flows into 79th or 78th Street, O'Brien.
Can you go back? Oh, yeah.
So are those gonna be, what are those gonna be designated in the future long term?
Local residential streets.
Okay, so I mean, are they gonna go through in the future?
Yeah, O'Brien is connecting up to Ashwood Third.
Yep.
Okay.
So that one will make a connection, 79th Street going further to the west. That's a possibility, depending on what all is there for wetlands.
And my other question was, to Adam. Adam, this is, coming out of the pavement management, fund.
That is correct.
And, the CIP that, we had estimated, when did we do that? I mean, it's one thing to sit there and say 7% or like
Now
1
it's
year or
11.
whatever.
Yeah.
but when did we originally come up with the CIP estimate, for this project?
Those numbers are updated annually.
Yeah.
Obviously, when we're budgeting, we don't know the full extent of the project and
Yeah.
and all the details. We're just looking at the length of the roadway. So
Well, and I'm just trying to think when you were going through the CIP, were we putting like a 3 or 4% inflation on this before things really started ballooning?
yeah, I think we typically use about 3% on our capital projects from the year that we estimate them.
Yeah.
3% annually outward to the project date.
And we would have had Heritage Hills costs, so we would have known, but as you said, those now have gone up.
Right.
What are you seeing typically as far as road construction increases?
Yeah, so just on individual items like a ton of asphalt is 62 to 65 we were seeing last year. Now we're seeing 75 to 82. So it's gone up. Like I said, concrete pipe has been really gone up. I don't know if that's directly due to just not being able to keep
Inflation
up
or
the
supply
supply and
issues.
demand. And then concrete curbing. Anything concrete is gone up significantly. All these are high fuel intensive.
Mhm.
You know, delivering asphalt's a oil product, of course, then your delivery with the trucks and the paver and everything is using fuel, and fuel costs have gone up.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're always hearing out there in the news, supply issues, which I could understand costs going up. I could also understand the fact that he passed the $1 trillion bill, so you have new demand now and in the future for construction. I was just wondering kind of what you're hearing when you're talking to construction people as to what they're hearing for roads.
Well, the few projects that we've bid out this year, we've been pretty surprised at the number of contractors who are bidding. So it's still a pretty competitive market.
Competitive, but the prices are just going through the roof.
Well, they have to pay the bills.
But no, I understood, but
All right, any other questions or comments on this? Otherwise, I will make a motion to approve resolution 2022-18, receiving a feasibility report regarding the improvements within Walsh Estates and O'Day Acres and calling a public hearing for residents to be presented the project scope and the possible assessment costs.
Second.
Motion by Jessica, seconded by Tina. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Right. Moving on to item 6.1. Tina, you had asked for a COVID policy update.
Yes, I just, as I mentioned, since I wasn't here our last council meeting, I just wanted to make sure that, because Jeff wasn't at our last meeting, that he had what he needed, questions answered, and just information that was gonna be given to him, number one. So that would be, I mean, I know it was approved, but I just wanted to make sure that you were talked to or
Made
had,
aware.
or had the information that you need to make that decision.
Yeah, when I found out about my parents, I called Adam immediately because I was over there on Wednesday and my dad today, I got COVID. And then Friday, my mom was had COVID and she had other problems, but that's why I go, what's the day on that? Well, you know, then I got tested right away and then I didn't have it, but he goes, well, with quarantine, all the rules and whatnot, you can monitor on Monday, but you can't be here. All right. And that was it. I didn't have COVID at all. My family didn't, so other than my parents, so and all's okay so far. That's it.
What? That's not what.
Oh.
That was, I didn't need that, but I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of
Oh.
the updated COVID policy.
Yes,
That
you would
the
have been given
city-
that
Okay.
Madam Mayor,
in the packet you're referring to.
Correct, because we had a meeting outside of our council meeting and you were not there.
Oh, okay.
And so I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of what we had discussed in that meeting
Oh, that,
before you
okay.
made the decision up here.
No, I didn't, I wasn't aware of that.
Madam Mayor. And I'm guessing what you're getting at, that on January 24th,
Mhm.
we adopted resolution 2020-12 approving the COVID-19 leave program that we had discussed several times in other meetings.
Correct.
So you were aware that we approved
Oh, that was, yeah.
the resolution. I guess where you're going is, did you have any other questions or issues with
The update.
What was
approval.
presented?
No.
Okay, and I just want to put on the record, I know it was approved, but I would have not approved it if I would have been here that evening for the COVID program policy. So I just want to make sure that that's on record.
in, Madam Mayor?
Yep.
In all those discussions that we had, I think we all agreed on all the sections except for, I think. it was
Section number
section
6. Yes, yep,
So-
number 6.
And so it can be noted as it is right now, but if you, as you're saying, you would have voted against it, it still would have passed it before.
Correct, right. But I just want on record that I was not for it.
All right.
Thank you.
Then we are moving on to city council reports and updates. Does anyone have anything?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Tom.
Adam and Dan essentially hosted and I attended the leadership for Elk River Chamber of Commerce. And I just want to sit there and say that Adam and Dan, you did a phenomenal job.
I got some very good feedback on it. They both said, like,
It was well attended. too.
Well
There
attended.
yeah, this whole place was packed.
so good job. They said that the information they gathered was great. The exercise you did was also very interesting to them. So thank you again for putting that together and presenting it to him. Tom, thanks for being here also.
I had little say what happened, so.
Next time Adam's thing will have to go first, so I don't talk over my time.
Madam Mayor, I heard Tom say you did an awful job. And then we had a lot of positive feedback. Did you say
Awesome.
awesome? Thank you for clearing that up.
No, I heard you say awesome. See, the microphones aren't working.
Really?
Even there, they said I'm soft spoken. And I understand that.
Because you lean back is the problem. He needs to lean forward. We need to get him the microphone that clips onto
As I
his
lean
jacket.
Yeah.
On his lapel.
Yeah, yep. Any other city council reports or updates? Moving on to staff reports and updates. Audra.
Thank you, Mayor. Staff, just to follow up with the advisory commission applicants, staff will follow up with the rest of the applicants this week.
Thank you. Adam.
Thank you, Mayor. A few items, strategic planning session scheduled for this Saturday. I am still waiting on the final agenda, but I did send out the start time last week, so more details to come in the coming days. So watch for your email.
So there's no like pre-work that we need to do this time?
No study.
Okay.
Did
You know,
find
sometimes
out-
we've had tests and we have to send in information. I'm like,
did you
it's
find out about
Monday.
your Coaching or?
Yeah, we've,
Anything?
yeah, we've got games both days.
we will not see you. Okay.
Reminder that the city offices are closed on Monday for President's Day. Just an update on the recruitment for our finance position. We have 73 applicants as of this morning, so that closes on Friday. So we'll be screening candidates and doing interviews next week. And then lastly, if the council be willing to schedule a special meeting for February 28th, same night as normal council, 5:30 or 6 start time, whatever works with your schedule. We have emergency services study and facility space needs study updates to review.
What else do we need to review?
The emergency services study
Yep.
and the facility space needs.
5:30.
I would think 5:30, just so we don't run. Does 5:30 work for everyone that evening?
Do you think hour and a half is gonna be enough or an hour is gonna be enough? I mean,
I would-
because my guess is if it goes over, we're gonna stay after council time.
I would guess that one of them will likely run over.
But you'll have, are we gonna have outside people for both that would be present?
Outside parties for both.
Okay. So
Okay.
then we
5:30
need
probably.
5:30. Okay. I will make a motion that we call a special meeting for February 28th, starting at 5:30 at Prairie Center. Review the items Adam listed.
Second.
Motion by Jessica, seconded by Brittany. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Nothing else, Mayor.
All right. Dave,
I have nothing. Thank you, Mayor.
Ron,
Nothing there.
Dan,
Mayor, I had nothing further.
wow.
We did a lot of talking, so.
Jason. Jason's got his notebook, so.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun.
Dun, 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 dun,
I feel like you need the
dun,
Captain
dun,
America.
dun. I always take my notebook out.
No, we appreciate it.
Obviously, we already took time at the beginning of the meeting, so I don't want to have a gigantic portion of it, so I'll try to be quick. I guess really the only thing to pass on, I discussed it at public safety, but I did have a meeting with the North Star Regional, the treatment center at Riverwood. Had a pretty good conversation with some of the staff there. Just try to get everybody on the same page as far as emergency response, everything that may be involved with either law enforcement or just public safety in general there. So they're going to start kind of trickling people in. Sounds more towards the staffing on their side of things. They're still working on getting everything from cooks to IT to social workers, everything like that into that building, and that's going to kind of correlate how many people are going to be residents of that center. So I just mentioned to them that to be successful with this and any sort of law enforcement response, or again, even the public safety aspect, ambulance, fire department, whatever the case is, that to make sure that we're keeping up on me being kind of the liaison with that group there. So they seem to be super open with that. They were very transparent with everything that's going on. And I made sure to really open up the chain of communication by offering my email and phone number and everything like that, so that we're all on the same page with those sort of things. So beyond that, it seems like it's been pretty busy last week and a half here, even with the super cold weather. I feel like a lot of signs have been taken down with all the goofy weather and all the traffic.
Oh, Dean and 39, yeah. Look out, folks.
Yeah. So, but I'll wrap it up as that, I guess, for the time being, unless there's questions.
And thank you for, as you spoke at public safety with North Star, that was part of their conditions, is to work closely with you on that. So thank you for reminding them that, and also making yourself available to meet them and continue that conversation moving forward. So thank you. I think it can be positive if you work together.
I agree. It's gonna be a good partnership. So, yeah, thank you for doing that.
Tom?
And Madam Mayor, I know when they first came in and during all the public debate we had back and forth, you said you'd be the liaison. And just again, thank you for following up on that and continuing in that.
Absolutely.
They opened today, right? It said they opened today.
Yeah.
Thank you. Guess you'll have an update for us at the next meeting, if
Yeah.
they for sure did open today and what the first few weeks have been like. So, all right, does anyone have anything for Jason? All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Great job. Thank you.
All right, if no one has anything, then a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Second.
Motion by Tom, seconded by Tina. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. The meeting is ended. Thank you all for attending via Zoom and also in the audience this evening.
Happy Valentine's.